Hi, Michael from A Mindset Reset. Today's topic we're going to be discussing suicide prevention and awareness. Suicide is a desperate attempt to escape suffering that has become unbearable, blinded, blinded by feelings of self loathing, hopelessness, and isolation. A suicidal person can't see any way of finding relief except through death. But despite their desire for the pain to stop, most suicidal people are deeply conflicted about ending their own lives. They wish there was an alternative to suicide, but they just can't see one. These are some of the common misconceptions about suicide, uh, myths and facts. Uh, The first myth is people who talk about suicide won't really do it. Fact, almost everyone who attempts suicide has given some clues or warning. Don't ignore even indirect references to death or suicide. Statements like, "You'll be sorry when I'm gone," or "I can't see any way out," no matter how casually or jokingly said, may indicate serious suicidal feelings. Another myth: anyone who tries to kill themselves must be crazy. Fact: most suicidal people are not psychotic or insane. They are upset, grief stricken, depressed, or despairing. But extreme distress and emotional pain are not necessarily signs of mental illness. Myth: if someone is determined to kill themselves, nothing is going to stop them. Fact: even a very severely depressed person has mixed feelings about death, fluctuating between wanting to live and wanting to die. Rather than wanting death, they just want the pain to stop, and the impulse to end their life does not last forever. Another myth: people who die by suicide are people who were unwilling to seek help. Fact: many people try to get help before attempting suicide. In fact, studies indicate that more than 50% of suicide victims had sought medical help. Another myth: talking about suicide may give someone the idea. Now, fact: you don't give someone suicidal ideas by talking about suicide. Rather, the opposite is true. Talking openly and honestly about suicidal thoughts and feelings can actually help save a life. Uh, Take any suicidal talk or behavior seriously. It's not just a warning sign that the person is thinking about suicide, it's actually a cry for help. Most suicidal individuals give warning signs or signals of their intentions. The best way to prevent suicide is to recognize these warning signs and know how to respond if you spot them. If you believe that a friend or family member is suicidal, you can play a role in suicide prevention by pointing out the alternatives and showing that you care, and getting a doctor or psychologist or psychiatrist involved. Major warning signs for suicide include talking about killing or harming oneself, talking or writing a lot about death or dying, and seeking out things that would be used in a suicide attempt, such as weapons and drugs. These signals are even more dangerous if the person has a mood disorder, such as depression or bipolar disorder, suffers from alcohol dependence, maybe has previously attempted suicide, or may also have a family history of suicide. A more subtle but equally dangerous warning sign of suicide is hopelessness. Studies have found that hopelessness is a strong predictor of suicide. People who feel hopeless may talk about unbearable feelings, predict a bleak future, and state that they have nothing to look forward to. Other warning signs that point to a suicidal mind frame include really dramatic mood swings or sudden personality changes, such as switching from outgoing to withdrawn or well behaved to being rebellious. A suicidal person may also lose interest in day to day activities, neglect his or her appearance, and show big changes in eating or sleeping habits. Uh, Suicide warnings might include like talking about suicide. Any talk about suicide, dying, or self harm, such as "I wish I hadn't been born," "if I see you again," and "I'd be better off dead." Seeking out lethal means like seeking access to guns, pills, knives, ropes, or other objects that could be used in a suicide attempt. There's also a preoccupation with death, an unusual focus on death, dying, or violence, writing poems or stories about death, no hope for the future. Basically, feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, and being trapped, uh, like there's no way out. Belief that things will never get better or change, and then there's self-loathing, self-hatred, feelings of worthlessness, guilt, shame, and self-hatred, feeling like a burden. For example, everyone would be better off without me. Also, people getting their affairs in order, like making out a will, giving away uh, prized possessions, making arrangements for family members, also saying goodbye, unusual or unexpected visits or calls to family and friends, saying goodbye to people as if they won't be seen again. Also, withdrawal, withdrawing from others, withdrawing from friends and families, increasing social isolation, desire to be left alone, self destructive behaviour, increased alcohol or drug use, reckless driving, taking unnecessary risks as if they have a death wish. Also, uh, there may be a sudden sense of calm and happiness after being extremely depressed can mean that the person has made a decision to attempt suicide. These are suicide prevention tips. Speak up if you're worried. If you spot the warning signs of suicide in someone you care about, you may wonder if it's a good idea to say anything. What if you're wrong? What if the person gets angry? In such situations, it's natural to feel uncomfortable or afraid. But anyone who talks about suicide or shows other warning signs needs immediate help, and the sooner the better. Talking to a friend or family member about their suicidal thoughts and feelings can be extremely difficult for anyone. But if you're unsure whether someone is suicidal, the best way is to find out is just to ask. You can't make a person suicidal by showing that you care. In fact, giving a suicidal person the opportunity to express his or her feelings can provide relief from loneliness and pent up negative feelings, and may prevent a suicide attempt. Uh, there's ways to start a conversation about suicide. You can say, "I've been concerned about you lately. Recently, I've noticed some difference in you and wonder how you're doing. Uh, I wanted to check in with you because you haven't seemed yourself lately. There's questions you can ask. When did you begin feeling like this? Did something happen to make you start feeling this way? How can I best support you right now? Uh, have you thought about getting help? Uh, these are some of the things that you can say that helps to the suicidal person. You're not alone in this. I'm here for you. Uh, you may not believe it now, but the way you're feeling will change, and it does change. I may not be able to understand exactly how you feel, but I care about you and want to help. Uh, when you want to give up, tell yourself you will hold off for just one more day or an hour or a minute, whatever you can manage. When you're talking to a suicidal person, be yourself. Let the person know you really care, that they're not alone. Finding the right words are not nearly as important as showing a genuine concern for them. Uh, listen, let your friend or loved one vent and unload their feelings, no matter how negative the conversation seems. The fact that is taking place is a really positive sign. Uh, be really sympathetic and non-judgmental. The suicidal person is doing the right thing by talking about their feelings, no matter how difficult it may be to hear. Offering hope, uh, reassure your loved one that help is available and that the suicidal feelings are temporary. Let the person know that their life is really, really important to you. Uh, be sure to take the person seriously. If a suicidal person says things like, I'm so depressed I can't go on, ask if they are having thoughts of suicide. You're allowing them to share their pain with you, not putting ideas in their heads. Uh, Important things not to do is argue with the suicidal person. Avoid saying things like, "Oh, you have so much to live for. Your suicide will hurt your family," or even worse, suggesting that they just snap out of it. Don't act shocked. Lecture on the value of life or argue that suicide is wrong. Don't promise confidentiality or be sworn to secrecy. There's a life at stake here, and you may need to speak to a mental health professional in order to keep the suicidal person safe. If you promise to keep your discussion secret, uh, more likely than not, you're going to have to break your word. Don't offer ways to fix your loved one's problems. Just give advice or make them feel like they have to justify their suicidal feelings. It is not about how bad the problem is, but how badly it's hurting your friend or loved one. Don't blame yourself. You can't fix someone else's depression. Your friend or loved one's happiness or lack thereof is not your responsibility. It's important to respond quickly in a crisis. So, if a friend or family member tells you that he or she is thinking about death or suicide, it's important to evaluate the immediate danger the person is in. Those at the highest risk for committing suicide in the near future have a specific suicide plan, the means to carry out the plan, and a time set for doing it, and an intention to do it. You can ask these questions that will help you assess the immediate risk for suicide. You can ask the person, do you have a suicide plan? Do you have what you need to carry out your plan? Pills, guns, weapons? Uh, do you know when you would do it? Uh, do you intend to take your own life? See if that is the intention. If a suicide attempt seems imminent and it's going to happen, call a local crisis centre, uh, or dial the emergency services, or even take the person to an emergency room. Remove any guns, drugs, knives, or any kinds of weapons, any kind of lethal objects from the vicinity, but do not, under any circumstances, leave that suicidal person alone. Uh, Offer help and support. So, if a friend or family member is suicidal, the best way to help is by offering an emphatic listening ear. Let your loved one know that he or she is not alone and that you really do care. Don't take responsibility, however, for healing your loved one. You can offer support, but you can't make a suicidal person get better. He or she has to make a personal commitment to recovery. It takes a lot of courage to help someone who is suicidal. Witnessing a loved one dealing with thoughts about ending his or her own life can stir up many difficult emotions. As you're helping a suicidal person, don't forget to take care of yourself. Find someone that you trust, a friend, family member, clergyman, or a counsellor, to talk to about your feelings and get support of your own. Ways to help a suicidal person is get professional help. Do everything in your power to get a suicidal person the help he or she needs. Call a crisis line for advice and referrals. Encourage the person to see mental health professionals. Help locate a treatment facility or take them to a doctor's appointment. Uh, and follow up on treatment. If the doctor prescribes medication, make sure your friend or loved one takes it as directed. Be aware of possible side effects and be sure to notify the doctor if the person seems to be getting worse. It often takes time and persistence to find the medication or therapy that's right for a particular person. It's important to be proactive. Those contemplating suicide often don't believe that they can be helped. So you may have to be more proactive at offering assistance, maybe saying, call me if you need anything. That may be a little too vague. Don't wait for the person to call you or even to return your calls. Just drop in. Uh, uh, Invite the person out. Uh, Encourage positive lifestyle changes such as a healthy diet, plenty of sleep, uh, getting out in the sun or into nature for at least 30 minutes each day. Exercise is really important as it releases endorphins and relieves stress and generally promotes an emotional well-being. Make a safety plan. Help the person develop a set of steps he or she promises to follow during a suicidal crisis. It should identify any triggers that may lead to a suicidal crisis, such as an anniversary of a loss, alcohol, or stress from relationships. Also include contact numbers for the person's doctor or therapist, as well as friends and family members who will help in an emergency. It's important to remove potential means of suicide, such as pills, knives, razors, firearms, and such like. If the person is likely to take an overdose, keep medications locked away or give them out only as the person needs them. Uh, it's important to continue your support over the long haul. Even after the immediate suicidal crisis has passed, stay in touch with the person, periodically checking in or dropping by. Your support really is vital to ensure your friend or loved one remains on the recovery track. Uh, uh, I'll post links to suicide helplines in the US, Ireland, and England in the description box below. But it doesn't matter what country you're in, please get in touch with the emergency services if you're feeling suicidal, or please contact a family member or a friend. And don't go it alone. There is help out there. Don't despair. There are people around you uh, that genuinely do care about you. Okay, until next time, take care of yourselves and God bless.